foundation of the teaching today, I want to make sure that we really have a grasp of why connecting with people is so vital. So if you go to the very first sentence in your note, the number one criteria for advancement and promotion for professionals is an ability to communicate effectively. That I do believe. I think the ability to connect and communicate is the number one criteria for success with your family, with your marriage, with your children, with your friends, in the workplace, the marketplace, in the community. If you have the ability to connect with people, if you can communicate and connect, not just communicate, it takes you and literally gives you and I a decided edge over others in the advancement of what we're trying to accomplish. For example, in your notes, presidential historian Robert Dallek says that successful presidents exhibit 5 skills and qualities that enable them to achieve things that others don't. So he's talking about leaders and presidents and people. What makes some achieve better than others? Here are the 5 things they do well. Number 1 is vision. Number 2, pragmatism. Number 3, consensus building. The ability to put together a team and get consensus. Number 4, charisma. And number 5, trustworthiness. Being a trustworthy kind of a person. Now, what is interesting about these five things that set the better presidents apart from maybe the average ones, 4 of the 5 deal with connecting. Vision is a definite connecting skill, the ability to cast a future vision. Consensus building, getting people to work together. You have to be able to connect to do that. Charisma, of course, that's why people follow the quote, the Pied Piper, and trustworthy. 4 of the 5 of the skills needed to be successful as a leader had a lot to do with connecting. So let me define connecting, because that's what this book is all about. Connecting is the ability to identify with people and relate to them in such a way that it increases our influence with them. In other words, we can identify with them until they say, he or she understands exactly what I know and what I'm going through, and we can relate with them until we, because of that ability, we begin to increase our influence with them. And of course, what do I teach about leadership? Very simple. Leadership is influence.
All right. What did you all think about that video?
I've never heard him speak, but I can agree with most of what he says. Leadership and influence is kind of like getting that buy-in.
Yeah. Anyone else? Something that you heard that was interesting?
I agree.
All right, yeah, cool. And the interesting thing about John Maxwell, and I give him a lot of credit, is that he brings people into like his story or communicating. If you ever you look at him on YouTube, and he has like these great speeches about stuff, and like he does that a lot now. He sits down in a chair since he's older, but he has gotten this thing about, hey, sitting down in a chair has really like given him more power to communicate with people. And the reason why I like these lunch and learns is it's the opportunity to kind of share a topic with people and then figure out, hey, is there something else that I could do or help people? And so my goal is always to help out business owners. How do you communicate with the people you work with, right? And so if you don't communicate effectively or the best that you can with what you have, then how do you expect other people to do what you ask them to do, right? So and so, like, as John Maxwell says, if you ask me what's the number one thing people need to be successful at, is communication. And it's just not communication talking, even though I'm talking, but it could be email, it could be phone. Oh, just by a show of hands, do you like the text? Oh, anybody do you like who likes the text more than email? Anybody?
50-50.
50-50. What about email? Anybody like email more than talking to people?
I'd rather call.
I'd rather talk.
Call. What about you, Chris?
Email and call.
All right. And so those things, the reason why I asked that question, because like there's people that I know, they would text me, but then when I call them, they won't answer. And I'm like, what's up with that? Right. And so they like to text because that's the easier form of communicate, or email, right? Or if you read an email and say, for instance, kind of like this this handout, it has like all bold. If somebody caps and bolds all of their stuff in the email, it might signal something to you that maybe they're screaming.
Right.
Right. They're not screaming with your voice, but they might with an email. So those are the things that kind of like, think about why communication is important, and then what form are you going to use to communicate with people? And usually sometimes I would ask people, what's the best form of communication? Should I text you? Should I call you? Should I email you? What is it? Right. And so, because if not, you might be using a tool that people don't even care about, or they might be annoyed. Right. So it's always about trying to connect. How do you connect with people? Right. And so, have you all had an issue where you didn't connect with somebody? And if so, would you explain what happened when you were trying to connect with someone? What happened?
I think that's an issue.
All right. All right. You haven't had the issue. All right. Or maybe I'll give you an example of one. So, and this is a real life one that's happening right now, talking about adjusters, talking about commercial insurance, right, and stuff. So I had a person run a backhoe into one of my Little Caesars drive-through awnings. I don't own the property, somebody else does, right? And so I have the property owner, I have the adjuster, I have the local adjuster, all these people talking to me, right? And so I'm emailing people, I'm calling people, nobody's getting back to me. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, what's happening? And so the property owner has always been like that. They just don't get back to me, right? Unless there's something they want me to do for them. And so the property owner manager calls me Friday at 6 o'clock from my cell phone. And I'm like, what's up? Like, what are you calling me for? She's like, I never got your emails. I'm like, what are you talking about? I sent you like tons of emails. I got pictures, I have videos, I have this. She said, I never got your email. I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, oh, my IT department, after I talked to them, said they blocked your email. I said, listen, I'm trying to get this property fixed. So I didn't know that the emails wasn't going through. So guess what we did? We found a way to send my information from my personal email to her, and then she got it. I'm like, what? So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you think about communication, you might send an email, you might left a voicemail message, but someone might not have received it. So it might be something you got to think about, like, how do I connect with somebody, but I'm not connected, right? Or you thought you connected, but you didn't get a connection with them. So I just share that as like just things that you might want to think about as it relates to connecting with people. And so Harvard's Business Review says the number one criteria for the growth up your professional ladder or the ability is communication. And it's something I have to work on. I'm an introvert. Probably saying, what? Guy talking about communication, an introvert. It's something I had to work on. I wasn't an effective communicator until I started to get some help, from some professional communicators. Now, he talked about these things. They are here on your notes. If you want to, on your notes page, vision, charisma, pragmatism, trustworthiness, consensus building, in reference to 5 skills or qualities that can help you with communication. And so if we look at these, like, how can I, when I talk to people, so like I have managers that work for me, right? So I'm not doing like this hard training. Like if we're together, if we're in a store, what I will be doing is modeling, right? So say for instance, you all have, I don't know, just take somebody that you're working with, right? And you say to them like, listen, you didn't communicate to me very well. Can I talk to you about it, right? And you might have that situation happen. So what I usually do, especially if people report to me, they call me the boss. I don't like to be called the boss. I like to be called the helper or the owner. But I usually say, let me show you, right? Let me show you how to do this. So do you all have people report to you, or are you all like individual at what you do? Not anymore. You had before, right? But you have people report to you?
Yes, I do.
You do. All right. All right. So, so, and so that might be good with you. So, I want to give you an example. I have this 18-year-old. He was still in school, graduated high school, and now he's becoming my manager. Right. So he would say, Karriem, you're the boss. I'm like, no, I'm not the boss. I'm the owner. He said, but people listen to you because you have authority. And I said, no, people don't listen to me because I have authority. He says, because it's how I communicate with them. So what I did, I said, listen, watch me. So I went over to the people and I said, can you help me with this? And then the people said, yeah, sure, I can do it. And I was like, that's what I'm trying to show you. Don't go and tell people, hey, you have to do this, you have to do that. Because after a while, they're not going to work with you. Plain and simple. I said, say, hey, can you help me? Even though I should be telling them, like, listen, you need to chill and you need to start working on this activity. I said, but I know if I continuously to communicate with them that way, they're not going to do anything for me. As soon as I walk out the store, they're going to fool around and do whatever they want. I said, but if I ask them for help, it's a different way. So that might be a different tactic. So I share that about, how do we do consensus building with people and we team build. Because I had that situation last week. I had two ladies. They do it great. They never call out, right? But one day, some days they do it. They come in and the first thing they do, they clock in and they sit down. They're only working 3 hours. So you're like, what are you doing? Right. And right, McDonald's has a thing about, hey, if you're leaning, you should be cleaning or something like that. Right. And so I'm like looking at the camera and I'm like, what are they doing? So I could have picked up the phone, called them, screamed at them and say, are you crazy? I'm paying you. You shouldn't be sitting down. So what I did was I let it slide because the day started off crazy for me and my wife had to help me out and she had to go to the store. So the next day I happened to go to the store. That's after I left you. I think it was Friday. And I said, listen, I need your help. They looking at me like, what? First of all, they always say, if I start talking about something, I need your help, there's an issue. I said, you all got to help me out. Like, you came into work and you didn't help the next shift out. So I need your help. And the lady that always gives excuses, you know what she said? I'm sorry. Yeah, we didn't do it. We didn't do what we were supposed to do. So I was like blown away. First of all, that the person that usually gives me excuses didn't give me an excuse, and she agreed. And I was blown away because I was going to go in there and just like lose it, but I didn't. So that's a way that how you get people consensus built, right? And then show them the vision. And so what I was trying to tell them is say, listen, if you don't prep and if you come in and you do nothing, then guess what? You're setting up the next people to have a messed up dinner time. So, and then number 5 is big. Can people trust you? Right? Can they trust you? When you're going to do Chris is doing you're going to do a claim or adjustment. And like, can people trust you that you're going to look at all the details? Like right now, I can't trust my property manager. I can't trust the adjuster. I can't trust the person that's working on in California. And you know what everybody's telling me? It's your problem, Karriem. I said, I didn't run into the building. They said, but you're the business owner that occupies the space. I said, yes, but like, you're not trying to help me. And I'm trying to communicate with you, but it's like there's a friction there. So what happened was the lady for the first time that's in California, that's the adjuster. She's like, I feel sorry for you. I said, thank you.
That's California. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so the first time somebody said, after I said, listen, can you understand what I'm going through? And, I try to build that communication connection with them. So anybody else want to share about one of these areas about skills, anything?
Back to what you said about like effective communication. So I told you my stepdad partner with somebody over in pizzeria, and I stopped there, lean on him, help him, him. He said that no management experience, right? And industry experience, but no management experience. I walked in and he was getting on this girl, she's probably 17, 18. She was vaping out front of the store. Now, the point that he was trying to make was fine.
Yeah.
Don't smoke your vape out front of the store. Look bad to customers. People don't want to see it. Go to the side of the store. Go to the back. Do whatever. The way and manner in which he went about it wasn't effective because as soon as you start berating this 17-year-old kid in front of 3 or 4 other people, her defensive wall is going to go up.
That's right.
You're not going to reach her. You're not going to change the behavior. She's just going to shut down. So my recommendation was, hey, maybe next time take her out back and have a conversation.
That's
Take her
right.
back at the store, have a one-on-one that's not in front of everybody else, so she doesn't feel embarrassed, doesn't feel the need to get defensive. So I guess that would be the most recent situation in my life where I was able to witness it, not part of it, but witness the lack of effective communication.
Yeah. And it's a huge thing. And, you know, the quick service food industry, well, food period, right? You know, I use Gordon Ramsay as like the big thing, right? He started off as having a show where he was screaming and losing it, throwing food at people. Now he's doing shows a little bit kind of toned down, right? But that only is going to work for a certain amount of time, screaming and losing on people, especially if you need people to work for you, right? You know, like I hear stories of people that their whole team, no matter if it's in food service or whatever, they just walked out on the business owner because they wasn't communicating effectively or it was too abusive. And so kind of build that consistency is important. Or when it's not working, it's like tell people like, what's going on? Like, let's try to have a conversation. So connecting is huge, right? And the ability to connect with people is a huge thing. And you all are in business of insurance. You know, I'm in the business of trying to connect with business owners. How do you connect with people? That's how you're going to get business, right? Or how you're going to get business from people. Because if you don't connect, guess what? Why do they want to work with you versus somebody else, right? So it's about that connecting piece. And what do you do when everyone you are leading or speaking to has different values or beliefs? I think you brought that up, right? Vaping is a huge thing. I mean, in many places, right? Professional, non-professional places, or, you know, the biggest thing that people is smoke breaks, right? In any company is a huge thing. Like how many smoke breaks people should take. And do you have a policy, not have a policy, you know? And people have different values, different values and different culture, right? You know, like I had one gentleman say to me that I have the right to scream at people because that's just how the industry is. I'm like, what? I'm like, I said, now, if my kid was going to run across the street and they're 5 years old, I should be screaming and pulling them back. I said, but if we're just working together, that's a different thing. So leaders should always think about how do we connect, right? And then this graph right here talks about like if you have a team of people, as you can see, like this graph, that if you have an individual, just they're doing the best they can as an individual, and they might be part of a team and they're not working with a team, that graph is just gonna go up, but it's not gonna have a trajectory if you're communicating better with the team, even higher. So one of the things that's important is that if you could get a team to focus together, and we all have been a part of teams, right? We have people that communicate well, we have team members that do well, some people slack, but if you get everybody to work together, then you all could accomplish more, right? And it's all about how do we take a team to be more effective? How do we connect with people and make that trajectory even greater, right? So connectors realize that if you could just get another 10% out of everyone on the team, that adds up to more contribution, right? You know, and you all know when somebody's slacking and you need that person, you know, if you're submitting a claim and that person, the admin person not doing their job, you got to keep on calling them. It's backing things up, right? And somebody's calling, hey, what's going on with this? You know, it's not happening. Or, you know, like in a pizza business, the biggest thing I tell them, you got to communicate. And they're like, what? It's like, it's on the screen. I said, I don't care what's on the screen. The screen can have something that you didn't actually put in the order for. And so they just look, they every time I go in there, everybody's like, can you just get out of here? Like, just like, please get out of here. And I'm like, no, I said, I'm trying to help you all out, right? You know, you've taken the order and you changed it, then you need to tell the people that what you changed, because what's on the screen might just be an incorrect order. You know, you all probably went to a place, right? You said, I ordered my burger well done. This is not well done, because somebody didn't put well done in the order, but they made it the way it was put on the screen. So using that, getting people to be more impactful, connecting, like once again, like John Maxwell is big about connecting. It's not natural sometimes for people to connect with people. Or like you were saying, you're trying to figure out how do you slow down more. Like that's something that I'm working on too. So I'm big in coaching, right? So I like to coach people. So people tell me a problem, I'm like writing the answer. Oh, we can do this, but right. But I'm not connecting with the person about their pain. When they tell me, a business owner would say, listen, I'm having an issue with hiring people, right? So I automatically start telling them this is what you need to do about hire people. Versus, all right, you say your issue is hiring, and I need to keep on asking them questions, right? Because I need to get the pain so I can get to the point, let's work together. But I'm doing I'm answering, I'm not connecting with them, right? And so right now I'm coaching. So I have somebody coaching me about how do I connect more people on a sales piece versus on a coaching, because I'm doing more coaching than sales, right? So, and every time I present to somebody, hey, let's work together, they're like, oh, let me think about it, because I'm coaching. I already gave them the value versus, hey, let's talk about how I can help you. Like I'm not even thinking about their pain, right? So somebody comes to you and says, hey, I have a pain of commercial insurance, and or like what Eric is helping me out now. I got a call from my commercial insurance person on Thursday saying that, Karriem, you don't have coverage. Never told me. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? I'm like, I'm letting them go, right? And so I'm gonna go to you and take all my coverage. And he should have communicated what was going on. He should have told me that whatever happened with his company, another company, wasn't working out. So Rockefeller says, hey, great speakers were bad speakers first. So if you don't think that you can effectively communicate in a certain area, that means you can learn how to effectively communicate. All right. And so, and take it from a person myself. I used to watch TV all the time, didn't read books, didn't read the newspaper. And someone said, listen, hey, the only way to get your vocabulary up, Karriem, is you got to read the newspaper and you got to watch some news. So now my wife's like, you watch too much news, now. And so, but it helped me with my vocabulary. And then also, I've also went to coaches before about communication, because when I used to talk and then turn away. I don't know if you've seen people like that before. They talk and then the last words you don't hear. So I used to do that. So this lady, what she did was as I have my camera, she would videotape me hours on. I was like talking. And then she was like, you know what your problem is? Every time you're about to finish something, you turn away from it. And that's why people can't understand you. I'm like, what? And she just videotaped me. And like, she was this great PhD lady, like well-known, right? And so she had this PhD and she said, listen, this is what I do. I help people effectively communicate. And she said, you got to stick on it and keep your volume up. And I'm like, all right, okay. So, and we talked about this already, relationships are huge. Sacrifice, people like, why is that there? It's almost like you have to give up something. I think like you were saying, Eric, like sometimes you talk a lot and maybe you have to give up some time. And that's hard for me too. Like I always feel like I have to say something. And my wife was always mad at me. Mm-hmm. And she said, shut up, let me talk. Right? And so that might be something that you might have to like do like a pause or something. I've been trying to do that also. So when I'm taking notes when somebody's talking, I try to write down, says like, don't interrupt. But it's hard. It's a hard thing if you're not used to it, So anybody else want to share about this or have a question about what we talked about so far? As I say, I'm not going to keep you all long. I like to introduce the topic and see if a topic I think is of interest. You all came, right? So Max Dupree says there's no single thing more important in our efforts to achieve meaningful work and fulfilling relationships to learn to practice the art of communication. It's a practice, it's and believe you me, I'm always working on it. So the goal is to influence and connect with people, right? As a leader. So we can influence, connect with them. So what do you see? What do you see in that picture? You can just say it out loud. Two people talking, right? Anybody communicating, right? Anyone else see something else?
I don't know what I would call the center. I don't know what I'd call it. I don't know. A candlestick is what I.
Candlestick. A vase, right? A vase, right? And so that's the thing about communication, right? people see different things from the same picture. And I know you all probably have done this before. You said something to somebody, and then they said something to somebody else, and then it got back to you. It was totally different. Right? You're like, what? I didn't say that, right? You're like, what are you talking about? Like, but that's what happens in communication. People might hear something or read something, and it's totally different. That happens to me a lot. Like, I'm not a detailed person, so I would read. If I'm looking at this, I would just look at this as a whole. Now, my wife would look at the vision. She was like, you didn't see the vision, Karriem. I'm like, because that's not how I view stuff. I'm good at like the overall picture. She's good at the details. And she pointed out to me before, she was like, didn't you see that disclosure at the bottom of that thing with the asterisk? I said, no. You're like, well, these people said we signed this. And so that's the thing about communication. That's why you have to figure out, like, how do you communicate? And then also how the person communicates, because you could be saying something and it could be totally different how they received it. So that's what that picture kind of puts together, right? So we got to reach common ground, understand other people's beliefs and their values. And so one takeaway that you all will take away from what we discussed today. What is one takeaway? One takeaway.
To probably continue to improve. I mean,
Okay.
my instinctive response is, what do you need to learn about effective communication? Would be nothing. I spent 10 years in operations. I've done so many classes. But that's not true. My instinct is, I'm good. But when you stop to think about it, no one's perfect. And I probably still fly off the handle, or am instinctive in a situation, depending on the severity of the situation, where stopping, taking a breather, and, applying effective communicative skills will benefit me. So just keep improving.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
never assume that there's nothing else you can learn.
you.
You can always learn something. You can always communicate better.
Yeah, we always can learn something. I think about it. I was an executive pastor of a church when I lived in Rhode Island for 26 years, and always every time I sit in the audience in any church, I'm like, man, I said the person's just talking to us. We can't talk back to them. Like it's like this one-way communication. So I always I wonder if we had a thing where people just type in stuff and they could get feedback as soon as someone talks. Like, what will happen? Like, I don't agree with that. Are you crazy? So it just think about community. We always are working on our communication. And I tell people sometimes we're not going to be the best, right? We're going to mess up and we might not have all the answers, but if we can work on it and apologize to people, then,
Learn from your own mistakes.
what'd you say?
Learn from your own mistakes.
Learn from your own mistakes, right? So this concludes my lunch and learn, and I thank you all for attending. And hey, if there's anything else I could do for anybody that I love to work with small business owners, and let me know. So my goal is to have one every. You're welcome. My goal is to have one every month. So.
And you said you only had, like I said, about 2 weeks to promote this.
Yeah. 2 weeks. I'm like, hey, I'm putting on the schedule. They said I could use their conference room. I just became a chamber member 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah,
So-
because that was your first.
This is my second. Friday was my second networking.
Right, but it was your first morning. Good morning.
Yeah. So I joined and I said, that's why anybody's doing lunch and learns. They said, no. I'm like, what? They're not doing lunch and learns in your conference rooms? I said, I'm gonna start them up again.